Hello and welcome to LAWS13013 Legal Professional Conduct. I'm Associate Professor Scott Beattie and I'll be your course coordinator this term, and Professor Stephen Colbrand will be helping out and taking some of the tutorials as well. As you can no doubt hear, I have something of a cold today, so I will try and speak clearly and enunciate, so hopefully you'll be able to understand what I have to say. Alright, legal professional conduct, legal ethics. Why are we doing this? This is a very important skills-based subject, and it's something that will equip you for issues that come up in practice. Now, most ethical issues are reasonably clear-cut, and most of the things you hit every day are reasonably clear-cut. What this subject is about is the exceptional circumstances, and it's about providing a certain scaffolding, a certain framework to deal with those issues. I would hope that we all appreciate the difference between right and wrong in everyday circumstances. So this subject is not about whether or not you should steal from your clients or cheat or lie or disclose confidential information. And of course you shouldn't do those things. And of course there are rules that say that. Because if you don't have rules, people will say, where are the rules that say I can't do that? But what this subject is really about is the situations where things aren't clear cut, where there are competing duties, and when those decisions become quite stressful because you have two different issues, two different sets of interests that you need to behave in an ethical way in relation to, and the rules don't provide you with a nice clear-cut example. So we go through the rules, we go through the basics, we go through the you shall not steal, you shall not cheat, you shall not lie. But where we're really interested is what happens with these conflicts of interests. What happens where the interests of the clients are not clear-cut. Where there are multiple clients. There are all sorts of interesting issues, so we'll explore those throughout the course, and I think you'll find there's some very interesting issues that come up. This subject is not just about, I guess, the rules either. It's about training your ethical muscles. It's about thinking through these scenarios, thinking through the situation, so if they do come up in practice, and they don't come up every day, they don't come up often, but when they do, you at least have some muscle memory to fall back on. Now, most of the scenarios that we bring up in this course are really focusing on the traditional legal firm lawyer-client relationship. And one thing that's an interesting question for us to explore is, what does this mean with the evolution and changes that are taking place in the legal profession? As fewer and fewer people are going into traditional practice and are going into all sorts of interesting and new different legal roles, what does that mean for those legal duties? What does it mean for the precedents that we have that are talking about clients in a very, very old-fashioned traditional situation for the future, where that sort of lawyering is going to be less and less likely to occur, and the jobs that you're going to take you to very interesting places as legal professionals, but they're not necessarily going to be the same ones. So that's an interesting issue that we're going to explore where we can through this course. All right, so have a look at the Moodle site, have a look at what's there. Have a look at the assessment. There is a large examination in this subject, and this is where your weekly tutorials will come in handy, because the weekly tutorials are going to be running through the sorts of things that are going to be on the exam. So these are going to be your practice for answering the exam questions. There are two other items of assessment. There is a large written piece, 40%, and a small 10% interviewing exercise. The details are there on Moodle, but in brief, the interviewing exercise will take place in the last week of term, and it basically asks you to get into groups and to run through some interviewing exercises and to reflect on the ethical context. So it'll require a little bit of organising, but I think you'll find it interesting, and students in the past have definitely found it an interesting exercise. But make sure you've got some time, you clear your diary in that week, in the last week, to make sure that you're available to do this. More details coming, of course. And the written assignment is about creating a professional education resource in whatever format you like, but we're encouraging you to be creative, that looks at a particular legal issue and explores that legal issue. So the examples of what students have done before are things like a screenplay, or perhaps an interactive, the design for an interactive resource. Again, we'll talk more about that as the semester starts. But as you know, legal profession is changing dramatically, and one of the things that legal professionals will be doing more and more of in the future is creating resources to explain what the law is. Fewer and fewer clients can actually afford to come and see individual lawyers, and the role of the legal profession is changing to a much more broad-based digital form of practice. And this is an example of that. Anyway, I've talked long enough. There'll be more of these videos coming, as you well know, and I look forward to seeing you in tutorials.